This charge build right here is the fastest, strongest build for clearing tier 100 nightmare dungeons at lightning speed. We utilize charge and leap to blast through dungeons and vaults, and it will be incredible for speedrunning the upcoming gauntlet as well. The build has incredible AoE DPS to blast through packs of enemies, insane healing, there's no fury issues, and it has amazing survivability on top, so you literally won't die even in tier 100 dungeons. And the best thing is that it uses no uber unique, so the build is accessible to everyone. If you've been struggling with lagging connection, especially in those higher tier dungeons where every millisecond counts, then I recommend checking out Lago Fast, which is software aimed at optimizing the response time between your computer or console and the servers of various games including Diablo 4. Using Lago Fast, your latency is improved, your connection bettered, and your overall gameplay experience is just much better. If you're a hardcore player, then this is even more important, as with a bad connection you can lose hours and hours of gameplay with just one little lag. Lago Fast not only helps your connection but also can optimize your settings if you're a PC player, and it also works for Xbox and PlayStation users as well. Simply search for Lago Fast on Google, download the tool, and activate this feature directly to elevate your gaming experience. Getting back to the build, let's go over the core gameplay loop. So to try get those juicy big hits with charge, we need a method to guarantee overpower with this build. We have two ways of doing this. The first is through our Paragon node, Bonebreaker, which guarantees an overpower every 12 seconds. And then the second is through one of our legendary aspects, the Earth Strikers aspect, whereby every 8 weapon swaps, our next hit is a guaranteed overpower, and that too with 100% increased overpower damage. Thanks to the Ring of Ravenous, every time we charge we apply Rend. And the smart thing about this is that it forces us to swap our weapons, because Rend requires a slashing weapon and our charge skill is assigned to our bludgeoning weapon. So every time we charge into an enemy, it will first hit the enemy with our bludgeoning weapon and then swap onto the slashing weapon for Rend effect. So we can gain 2 stacks with every charge use. We also use another brawling skill, Leap, which activates the Ring of Ravenous as well and achieves the same thing. Leap also allows us to increase movement speed across the map even further. Because this build has such a high rank of charge, the cooldown is minimal after hitting a pack of enemies, but say if we charge into one enemy or charge into nothing by accident, our shouts are there as a backup. The martial glyph reduces our non-shout cooldowns by 4 seconds each time we use a shout, so we can get our charge, leap, and iron skin skills back really quickly. Our shouts also allow us to heal through raid leader. Our final skill, iron skin, is there to provide us with even more survivability, as it provides a substantial barrier and even more healing on top. This also activates 2 other aspects. The first is the Iron Warrior aspect, which provides even more damage reduction on top, as well as unstoppable, and then it also activates the Conceited aspect for even more damage. Trust me, when you use Iron Skin, it's virtually impossible to die. If you're worried about single target DPS, don't worry, we stack so much overpowered damage that we're still able to one-shot bosses when you have that guaranteed overpower hit. So let's go over the skill tree in more detail. You want 1 point into Lunging Strike and 1 point into Enhanced Lunging Strike. You do not need anything more than 2 points here, as that's enough to unlock the next portion of the skill tree. I've then got 4 points into Rend, which boosts our bleeding damage from Ring of Ravenous and allows us to unlock the next section of the skill tree. I've then got 1 point into Rallying Cry, 1 point into Enhanced Rallying Cry, 1 into Strategic Rallying Cry, which gives us movement speed, resource generation, unstoppable, and fortify. Put 1 point into Challenging Shout for damage reduction against enemies, and 1 point into Enhanced Challenging Shout. Then put 3 points into Imposing Presence for more life, 1 point into Iron Skin, 1 point into Enhanced Iron Skin, and 1 point into Tactical Iron Skin. 1 point into Warcry, 1 point into Enhanced Warcry for the Berserking on cast, 1 point into Booming Voice, and 3 points into Raid Leader for the healing, which not only heals other people but heals yourself, which makes doing dungeons so much easier. 5 points into Charge, 1 point into Enhanced Charge, and 1 point into Power Charge, 1 point into Leap, and 1 point into Enhanced Sleep, then 3 points into Aggressive Resistance for the damage reduction, so then we can put 3 points into Battle Fervor to gain Berserking whenever we cast Charge or Leap, 3 points into Pit Fighter, 1 point into Thick Skin so we can put 3 points into Counter Offensive. Then we get the 3 passives, which allows us to hit those massive numbers. 3 points into Heavy Handed for the critical strike damage, 3 points into Wallop, 3 points into brute force for even more overpowered damage. And then finally 1 point into our key passive unconstrained, which boosts our berserking damage. Let's go over our gear and aspects next. I'll show you my gear and I'll also mention the perfect role you should be chasing as well. For your helmet, you want the Tusk Helm of Yoritz for more damage, more fury and more cooldown reduction when spamming charge. The Tusk Helm also gives more stacks of the passive aggressive resistance, which is going to increase your damage reduction while berserking, which is going to help you survive more. For your chest piece, put the Juggernaut aspect, which provides a massive flat chunk of armor. We don't use evade in the build because charge provides us with amazing mobility anyways. In terms of stats, you want damage reduction from close enemies, damage reduction while fortified, maximum life. For your gloves, you want aspect of the element, so every 7 seconds you gain a massive 30% bonus to physical damage, which works with charge. And then for stats, you want critical strike chance, overpower damage, strength, and then look for ranks to rend, but that's not necessary. For pants, I place the aspect of the Iron Warrior for even more damage reduction when we use Iron Skin. Here, go for ranks of charge, damage reduction from close enemies, damage reduction, and total armor. Between your chest piece or legs, you want at least one affix of total armor, so you hit the 14k armor cap. For boots, I place the Ghost Walker aspect, so whenever we're unstoppable, we have even more movement speed. And 3 of our abilities in this build give us unstoppable, so we literally have this up nearly all the time. In terms of armor rolls, you want movement speed here, and then 3 resistances for the ideal roll. Resistances are very important now in Diablo 4, and you ideally want around 60% resistance for all damage types minimum. For your amulet, you want to place the conceited aspect here, so you gain a 38% damage bonus when you have a barrier active. In terms of stats, you want movement speed, ranks to brawling skills, cooldown reduction, and then ranks of brute force or wallop. The fury cost reduction, you can see me here, is practically useless as none of our skills use fury. For rings, we have the Ring of Ravenous for one of the rings, and then for your second ring, we have a legendary ring with critical strike chance, overpower damage, and maximum life is your ideal roll. And then you want close damage or critical strike damage as your 4th affix. Place the Bold Chieftain's aspect here, which is going to reduce your shout cooldowns, and ergo your charge cooldowns significantly. For your weapons, ideally you want your two-handed bludgeoning weapon to be the weapon you use when you use charge, so it benefits from the wallop passive, and then we can benefit from Ring of Ravenous when it swaps to a slashing weapon. For all of your weapons, these are the most important stats: damage whilst berserking, overpower damage, strength, and all stats. For your two-handed mace, this is where I place the Earth Strikers aspect. For my two-handed axe, I place the Ancestral Charge aspect, which is what makes charge so good. And then on my one-handed dual-wield weapons, I place the Brawler's aspect for more AoE damage from charge, and Edgemaster's aspect so we gain more damage as we basically run around with maximum fury nearly all the time. In terms of gems, you want rubies in your armor and weapons for more life and more overpowered damage respectively. On your rings and amulet, place gems that cover the resistances that you don't have from your boots. So ideally you can hit the resistance cap for all elements. For your technique, you want the two-handed axe technique for 15% more damage against vulnerable enemies. Let's go over the Paragon board briefly. There will be a planner link in the comments below so you can go over it in more detail, but I'll give you guys a brief summary of what you want to unlock and in what order. Start off by placing the martial glyph in your first slot. It's the most important glyph for making this build work, so we want to unlock it as quickly as possible. Then place the Bone Breaker board down. This is one of the main ways we cause massive hits with this build when an overpower hits enemies. We overpower every 12 seconds with this legendary node, which is amazing, which is why we stack all those overpowered damage bonuses. Then unlock the Blood Rage legendary node. This is why damage whilst berserking is one of the most important stats for this build, because it's essentially multiplied by 25% with this Paragon node. Don't worry about the bleed part, we don't need it. You still benefit from the extra berserking bonus damage without causing any enemies to bleed. I then place the Crusher glyph here so we cause even more damage with maces and we cause even more overpower damage. Then we want to use the Carnage board and place the Ire glyph so we gain more damage whilst berserking, and we gain 10% damage reduction whilst berserking, which is super useful. Go across and next place the Warbringer board down and place the Exploit glyph here. This makes literally every enemy vulnerable, allowing us to take advantage of our axe technique. Then go back and get the Decimator board and place the Dominate glyph here. We want to literally pick up every willpower node possible here so we can reach a ridiculous amount of overpowered damage. I'm hitting over 400% overpowered damage on top, which is what helps us massively to hit those huge numbers. Finally get the hemorrhage board and place the brawl glyph here for the 18% increased charge damage. Your pet is actually really powerful, so I highly recommend leveling from 50 to 100 in nightmare vaults rather than regular dungeons, so you can level up your stones at the same time. We actually run the protect stone here, so we gain another barrier for more survivability, and we use the tactical and duration support, so we have that barrier up for longer. The more we have it up, the more we benefit from our conceited aspect, which gives us more damage when barrier is up. Safeguard support on top adds even more damage reduction. I then run Flash of Adrenaline with Fortify support, along with Initiative support and Gripping support for a nice 20% damage boost. I preferred using Tactical and Duration support for Protect over Flash of Adrenaline because then we benefit from the conceited aspect more often, which is more of a damage boost. Obviously, if you have unique stones, they will just make this build even better, but they're absolutely not necessary, as you can see from my demonstration. Uber uniques are also not necessary for the build, but if you do have them, especially the Harlequin Crest or Grandfather, they will be straight swaps that directly elevate the build. So there you have it, my tier 100 charge elite barbarian that is truly invincible, and it absolutely annihilates dungeons and vaults in minutes. If you enjoyed what I talked about today, remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Diablo builds as we get deeper into the season. I'm Mr. On It, and that's it for today. Peace out, guys.